How are you?
I mean,
Because I feel like when I look into the world, when I talk to people, people are not feeling that great right now.
many Americans fall victim to just like being caught up in the media cycle because it's here, it's the now, it's what's in the entertainment sphere.
Right.
And then it'll be the next entertainment thing.
It was funny seeing the TikTok that was like, you call yourself a community organizer, but you don't know who your neighbor is.
And I don't know everything, and I need to be a better citizen and a better neighbor. But why do we have to get to know each other in duress?
Right.
You know?
Right. Is your inflexibility impacting the ability to not rely heavily on the policies or the president or whoever in order for your life to be what you want it to be? I don't know. Would we schedule our time to go out to eat?
No.
I don't think so.
This is Sistas Declassified, the podcast where
Taylor
and Taryn,
your virtual sisters, share experiences, insights, and of course the juicy secrets that never leave the sister circle.
So shh, listen up. The Declassified convos are starting now.
Welcome back to Sistas Declassified. We're real-life sisters who decided to start a podcast instead of volunteering.
Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so that you can get your weekly dose of declassified moments.
Hello. We're here. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm feeling pretty energized this week. Probably because of the phase I'm in, my period. Man, hormones are critical for my body, I'm finding out.
Most of us. Once you learn, you're like, wow, there's cycles.
Yeah, so I'm at the point where I feel like a little like superwoman. So right now, when you ask me how I'm doing, great. Personally,
I'm glad you're feeling great, because I feel like when I look into the world, when I talk to people, people are not feeling that great right now. Because
that's real. Catch me in a week.
Right, for sure. Because, not to harp on it too deeply, but I feel like the presidential election and like just voting in general, not even just the presidential election, the things that are happening in the society as a whole have gotten people just scared, stressed, uncertain.
People are dying.
I think people are more combative. Like, I've seen people in comments talking about, if you vote this way or that way, don't mess with me after this because you hate yourself or you hate other people.
Yeah, and there's some truth to that.
Definitely. But I definitely also think that it's a little bit closed-minded because we have a lot of different beliefs and people value different things, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're all bad people.
Yeah.
And so I just have been contemplating, like, how can we have these conversations but also push ourselves to make impact in our community and be different, and not put so much power on the political parties that are in place. Like, not disenfranchise ourselves, obviously. I mean, I would love to, but... Well,
that's a deeper conversation.
Exactly, but I think just considering how much power we have as a community, like we quote unquote live in this democracy, right? But that also means we have a right to organize and improve our communities ourselves. But what I'm trying to say is I think that we have more agency as people, and we put a lot of our belief systems into the political powers and beliefs in what we can do and achieve into the political powers. But how much does your life actually change based on who's in office? Like, I really want you to think about your day-to-day experiences and how much you are impacted by the presidential election. So don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about every layer of democracy. I'm just talking about who is the face of democracy. Because we have a lot of power here. But if we don't talk to our actual neighbor, if we don't go outside and knock on people's doors. I know we all want to kind of, maybe, I won't speak for everybody, sorry. I know I like to connect with people who look like me. And so that always isn't your next door neighbor.
Right.
But I think that limits us from actually making the change in the communities that we want to see, because then we're not working collectively. We're probably working against each other, or we're all seeking the same thing, but only for our kinfolk, our skinfolk. I don't know. I just think that we have to maybe diversify and allow for more perspective in order to see the change that we want. And I guess that kind of leads me to my declassified moment, which is just that Too often we complain or fall victim to the systems that we live in, but we have the power and agency to take action and improve our lives by actually community organizing, connecting with those who are right next door to make change. And I just wanted to talk about that and expand on it. Do you have any thoughts? I feel like I've been talking and talking.
No, I mean, I think you're very passionate about this topic, so I think it's helpful for our sisters to hear you. I generally agree. I think there were a lot of folks who were, I guess, judgmental about in this election cycle. And I guess, I don't want to say rightfully so to a degree, but like people are allowed to have their opinions about voting specifically. But I also think there has to be some action behind it too, because you vote and then what? Mm-hmm. And like many Americans fall victim to just like being caught up in the media cycle because it's here, it's the now, it's what's in the entertainment sphere.
Right.
And then it'll be the next entertainment thing. Like,
right.
It's become a bit of a spectacle and less of like a opportunity for us to take a pause and like reflect collectively about our state of being. And so I think in some ways the whole thing has kind of become a bit of a...
It's an energetic warfare. That's what I see.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's tough because, like, am I going to vote? Did I vote? Yeah, yes. Will I vote? Yes. My vote will be there. But I just think there's so much more to do. And so, like, I even feel guilty sometimes because I feel like there's more I could do given how passionately I feel in certain areas.
Right, that's why our little segue was instead of volunteering. Because like, we're here talking about this when we could be doing something, but we're empowering reflection right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think there were a lot of people very vocal online about voting, and I don't necessarily hear them when it comes to community organizing, for example. Mm-hmm. So, like, yes, you may organize people to vote, and that's important. But are you organizing them just to vote for president?
Right. Like, are we talking about the propositions? Are we talking about the mayor elections? Are we talking about, like, new roads? Are we talking about cleaning up the homeless?
And I don't know everything, and I need to be a better citizen and a better neighbor. I live in an apartment, so I'm, like, getting to know my neighbors, and there have been some unfortunate, like, situations that have happened recently that have made us like get to know each other. Mm-hmm. But why do we have to get to know each other in duress?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think I know that I personally want to do better, and I think we should be having these conversations more, and maybe this is our reminder when we get to like midterm election season to talk about it again.
Yeah. And I think even talking about it with your friends and your family, because that's your immediate community, but they are also connected to people. So how do we start to actually organize ourselves in a way that we can achieve something? Like, for myself personally, thinking about, like, I'm into herbalism and holistic health and how I can better communicate those things to my community or have offerings for them. If I have my little herbal cabinet, like, can I be creating things that could be helpful to my community if I see a problem that could be benefited. Thinking about how we can kind of remove ourselves from like medicine and pharmaceuticals. Those are the systems that like keep us in big pharma, even like grocery shopping. Like that is a system that keeps us needing policies in order to survive.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, how can you connect with the farmers when you go to the farmers market? Can you talk to the farmers? Do you need a volunteer? Do you need something? I don't know, shipping. Do you need someone to come work here at the farmer's market for you so that you can stay and do something on your farm? Like, I don't know. I just start to think about how we can better connect with the people around us and have less touch points with the system.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. When we were talking about the farmers, it got me thinking about like tech companies and the types of, I guess, skills that folks have in that space and how they could be applied to like small businesses, for example. I think just like some of the experience you have in the corporate world, you could apply to folks who are doing, I guess, entrepreneurship, who maybe don't have the the business acumen per se, or the logistics side, but they have the vision, or they have the product, or they have the goods or whatever that could benefit folks. They just don't necessarily have the operations person behind the scenes. But like, could you be that person for someone in your community who's trying to do something great?
Well, that's why they say like neurodivergence or people with like hyper-focused interests are people's superpower. Because once you learn that you don't have to do it all by yourself, but can actually delegate tasks to the person who enjoys to do that thing, or the person who does it well, or whatever, then we'd see probably faster production of things. But because of the way our systems are set up, and we have to go to school and we have to learn about all these random things we don't care about, it doesn't allow for expertise. So that people are kind of in a state of needing others all the time, or relying on systems in order to get things done. So I just implore us to better hone in on what are we good at? What do we stand out? Where do we stand out? And how can I use that skill to then help my community? How can that be my connector? How can that then shape new opportunities for others around me? I don't know. Things I think about. But I just wonder how much we play the victim, and I think our systems make us really bogged down, which I get that.
Yeah, I mean they're designed that way.
Right, our food is tainted, our education is tainted, our medicine's tainted.
It's like
our clothes are tainted.
What are we gonna do?
Well, we just have to start to think for ourselves. I think is the big thing. Like, you can't be upset at people having a different opinion than you. You have to start to learn from that opinion and then make a different choice.
Yeah, I think circling back to elections, like, even if your side wins, quote unquote, that doesn't change the minds of the people who voted in opposition.
Right.
And they're still here. It's not like you vote and poof, they're gone.
Right.
Hopefully, right?
I wish that was how it worked.
Right. In a civil society, in a society that and by civil I mean a society that values humanity, right? Hopefully not, right? Those people are still there. So what are you going to do to help, like, move towards a future that benefits and suits you all? Because we still here. Right.
And obviously, don't think we're like limited minded in that everybody's going to be benefited in every situation.
Sure.
Because that's not realistic. But I do think that if we were all a little bit more open to having conversations about someone else's opinion or why they see something the way that they do, it would be a lot more progressive. But also, I understand that, like, there's genocide and, like, people are dying. And I know that because we are in the information age, we are having a lot more access to the fact that those things are happening. And so then you want to vote in a way that is supportive or not of saving people's lives, right?
Right.
Even with abortion, right? Some of these people think they are saving people's lives.
Right.
So I think if we are able to have more conversations about the actual impacts and not like skewed information, that would be helpful. But you have to then be able to talk to someone who sees it differently than you.
Yeah, and be able to hear them.
Right. So maybe the word isn't talk, but listen to people who see it differently than you.
It's two-way communication. Because the messenger has to be able to communicate in a way that the receiver can hear it, but also the receiver has to accept it.
I just want us to consider how we can build accountability for ourselves, check in a little more. Am I not connecting with this person for a bias that I'm holding? And also, am I closing myself off to an opportunity to learn something, even if I don't agree with the whole thing?
I guess what I can add to this is that it's interesting to hear you talk about, like, diversifying who you talk to in your communities and maybe, like, having different groups for different things. Because you used to kind of give me a little bit of a side eye for my friend groups. My friend groups are always a little bit more diverse than yours. And I feel like in some ways it was helpful for me. In my school life, I feel like I had more black friends and just more friends of color in general. Although I think the majority of my friends are friends of color. I don't know.
Anyway.
I just think I always appreciated having diverse friend groups because I think we all kind of brought something different to the table. And I've always been one of those people who's been very curious. Mm-hmm. And so it allowed me to kind of ask questions in a safe environment and learn how to answer questions that I might encounter out in the real world from people who, like, I don't really mess with. Mm-hmm. But, like, I can get them from my, like, quote-unquote ignorant friend who's asking me a question about, like, how often I wash my hair. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, those conversations are a little bit easier to have in, like, in the gym, in the chalk bin, than they might be in other settings. So, I don't know. I always found it helpful. And in adulthood, it's been interesting because, like, we don't all necessarily live in the same area now. We don't all do the same things or work in the same industries. And so we all definitely have slightly different views on the world. Mm-hmm. But we're still able to maintain our friendships. Although we haven't talked about this election cycle, though I think we're all generally in agreement.
Right. But I'm just thinking about, like, do you feel like you get different perspectives? Do you feel like you get access to different resources? Do you feel like in knowing these people, you gain new perspective? I know you didn't talk about necessarily election stuff, but mm-hmm. does it shape the way you see the world and how you would make decisions?
I would say, interestingly, no, in that we are more similar than we are different. I think most of the differences lie in, like family tradition stuff. Mm-hmm. Less around, like, how we, like, less around our morals and our values and how we believe people should move in the world. Mm-hmm. Or even, like, our ambitions or, like, how we operate. But I think in terms of the groups I'm thinking about, that's because of the context where we met, like, those same groups of people kind of exist in all those places. And mm-hmm. so I guess I found those same groups of people in those same places. So, like,
also, I wonder if there's more that the class system is what makes you
mm-hmm.
make decisions a certain way versus another.
Yeah.
And so I think in thinking about your neighbor, who the people around you are that you connect with, you guys are literally living in the same experience. Right. And so even if your skin isn't the same color, your mm-hmm. cultural background isn't the same, your values might very well be
the same.
Aligned.
Yeah.
But because you guys don't look like each other, maybe sometimes there's a communication barrier.
Or because you call this food one thing, but in my house I call it another.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, we're so different. And then that keeps us from connecting with each other. But I guess ultimately what we're trying to gain from this conversation mm-hmm. is just to start to take some more actionable steps to connecting with your actual neighbors.
Yeah.
Because it was funny seeing the TikTok that was like, you call yourself a community organizer, but you don't know who your neighbor is. And I think that is like, yeah. It's like a slap in the face that you want people to come to you.
Yes.
To organize the community. But you have to go to the people in order to organize. And the people are going to be the ones who are right
next door.
And obviously everybody's superpower is going to be different. Mm-hmm. What they bring to the community is going to be different. Whether they're willing to bring something to the community might be different, you know? But you never know until you go out and put your face out there and make an offering to the community of what you do well.
Yeah, and it can start small. I definitely was side-eyeing our mother during the pandemic as she was trying to get to know her neighbors through here. And they'd have their little, like, garage parties. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, for what? And now she's besties with all the neighbors. They help each other out whenever somebody gets a package delivered. Somebody will pick it up to make sure, you know, nothing happens to it. I interviewed one of
them for my research paper when I was in grad school.
I got some of the neighbors' clothes that she was donating that she didn't want. I'm like, what else? They babysit for each other. All sorts of things happen.
Our little cousins connect with them. They hung out for a birthday party. So,
and during the pandemic, they would have little block parties in the summer, which was nice.
Yeah, and I think that's not something that people are doing
anymore.
Yeah, because we definitely used to connect with our communities. Even Brandon and I were talking about, like, everybody's parent used to be like a kid's parent, not just your own parent, if that makes sense. Like, parents don't want anyone else to parent their children anymore, to an extent, it seems. From the outside looking in. Obviously, I don't have kids, so I'm not going to go too in-depth with that. But I just feel like there's a lot more ownership on the parents to do everything for their children and less on the community to keep an eye.
Yeah, like we kind of swung the other way, maybe. I wonder, though, if folks don't feel like they can ask for a community to be involved. And I also think maybe parents are more vocal in different ways.
About not wanting people.
Well, not about not wanting to, but maybe more controlling in the ways in which people interact with their kids.
For sure.
And so then folks are like, okay, no thanks then. Like,
right.
if they can only eat gluten-free and they can't watch this type of TV and then they need to have their
they're on this rigid routine.
Like, I think we kind of stopped meeting each other in the middle. Both for like the parents.
I'm gonna pack snacks, but if they end up eating candy at grandma's house, it's fine.
Right, because grandma watched them, and that's really what ultimately I needed. Right.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a different topic. But it's still relevant to organizing your community and connecting and considering: is your inflexibility impacting the ability to have support or to not rely heavily on the policies or the president or whoever in order for your life to be what you want it to be. So obviously our first recommendation is to get to know your neighbors. Are also look into volunteering locally. Like I mentioned, at the farmer's market could be a good spot because not only are you connecting to the people who are providing you the food, but also you're probably going to end up eating better for you and your family, which then impacts your health outcomes. You could create a group for people to come and join. I know we've talked about that quite a bit, is creating opportunities for people to connect at various age levels. You also don't need to be the originator of something. You could also participate in something locally. Like similar to the farmer's market, you can go and get business cards, or I know a lot of places will have like downtown festivals or jazz festivals are coming up in the holiday season. What do they have? I'm like, well, concerts in the park, Christmas in the park, movies in the park.
Those sort of things are coming up. So like getting to know the vendors at those events, collecting business cards, following them on social media so you can see what they're up to, because oftentimes vendors will post about events and then that's how you can keep up with what's going on and figure out what type of events you enjoy.
I think using social media, even though we always talk about not being on there, but using it to actually promote things that you went to and that were helpful to you, so that other people can also gain access, because obviously we want you to talk to your neighbor, but you already do have a community, and you want to make sure they're also accessing the resources that you find beneficial. I feel like we love to gatekeep, which I get it. I like to gatekeep some things too, because like once everybody knows about it,
the spot's blown.
Happens, it's no longer what you thought it was. Even your hair products, right?
Well, I don't know. Those are rumors. Those are rumors. I don't know.
Then why people buy it up? But see, that was me putting my bias out there. But that also came from a bias of believing we needed to have our own thing in order for our hair to do well. But when I went back to the white people products, my hair been doing better. So that's
it's an individual process. It's an individual process.
Yeah, but anyways, I think
social media can be a great tool to just keep tabs on and to keep up with what's going on with your local businesses. And I think it's also just a great way to support. I think, we could talk about personal branding later, but like in terms of business branding, having a following on social media is helpful. And so if you enjoy the business or their service, it doesn't take a lot to give them a follow and stay up to date.
Shout them out.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I think with all of this is just being a good listener and be willing to connect with people who maybe aren't seeing the world the same way that you do.
Like being curious.
Not closing your mind off to thoughts or ideas that don't necessarily match yours. And that can be hard to do because cognitive dissonance is real. And your brain shutting off when somebody is talking to you about something you feel like is BS. Like that is really hard to do for some people.
And see, mine won't shut off. Mine will just start screaming like, This is boring. This is boring. I hate this. This is boring. This is boring. I'm over it. Please stop talking. Please stop talking. What's happening?
Neurodivergence, but
Oh.
But yeah, I get it. Because yes, it does happen, and it happens to everyone. But I think it can happen more for others than. Yeah.
Well, sign me up on the more list.
But I just overall want us to be open to putting ourselves out there. I'm going to be trying to do the same. And maybe it's not that you can do it tomorrow, but maybe it's that you're living with intention so that you are able to do it at some point. Because fine, I might not want to talk to my next door neighbor because I've seen them do some wild stuff. But maybe 2 doors down, that person is all right. So I could talk to them, right? Like take baby steps. Like I live in an apartment as well. The apartment is open to putting on events. Like, could I go up and say, hey, when's your next event? Or what kind of things are you hosting? Can I help?
Oh, I am basically a fire marshal because my husband, bless his heart, he said it'll be fine, but I just couldn't help it. Because if I went to sleep and was woken up in the middle of the night because of a fire, I would have been so upset. But basically, we have people of all different ethnicities, cultures, and they were celebrating something. And it involved fire, and they had little candles out on their back patio. Not really a big deal, but when I was out walking the dog, I could see that their blinds were closed and they had a blanket laying over like the railing of the patio, and then the candles were right in front of the blanket on the railing. It's a little windy out. Their blinds are close to their patio. I'm like, so y'all just lit a fire out here? So I bring the dog inside, make another lap, and my next door neighbor is out, and so I'm like telling her about it. She was like, I'll come with you. Let's go over there. So we go over there and knock on the door. She was like, it's just a lady and her kid. She probably doesn't know. So I go knock on the door. The little boy answers the door. He's just like, I said, is your mom home? He was like, yeah. And walks away from the door. I was like, okay. And she peeks out from down the stairs and like comes down. And I was like, hi. I can't tell, but I think it's your patio. I don't know if you have candles or something lit out there, but you have a blanket and it's windy. And she was like, the boy. So we could have died that night.
I thought it was a real fire.
It was a real fire.
No, but I feel you. Fire danger.
Fire danger.
Fire danger.
Fire danger. I would have lost my mind had I had to get up in the middle of the night because the buildings were on fire. Because the way they're all connected. So if theirs was on fire, the next one's on fire. We all on fire.
Yeah, and you were being a good community member.
I was trying to be. I really just didn't want to be woken up by fire in the middle of the night.
I hear that, and that's fair.
But moral of the story is, don't be afraid to knock on your neighbor's door to ask them to put their fire out.
Or for sugar or whatever. But just like, how can we create some trust within our neighborhoods?
Amen.
And it sounds like you had a trusted neighbor that could come with you to then talk to your next neighbor. So that's good.
Well, that's because I had to call.
I know, but that's not relevant right now. I'm trying to move on from this topic. Thank you. I think the Sister Circle question for this week is just, are you willing to put yourself out there to create change? Or are you just wanting to fall victim to complaining about a system that's broken?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can complain about who the face of this government is all day, but until we are actually willing to take action to make change in the community that we impact, we are not necessarily going to see the change that we're hoping for, regardless of who's in charge. So also consider what local events you might be willing to attend that are maybe moving the community in a direction that you want to go in. Because like you said before, everyone doesn't want to be the creator of the change, but how can you impact it?
And somebody's out there already doing what you want to move forward. So it's just a matter of finding them and connecting.
Definitely. So with that, we want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also share with a friend. We're on the road to 100 subscribers.
Yes.
We'd love to get there by the end of the year. So we'll see you on the next one. Bye.